Man with Gareth McGuinness.
Welcome back to the 12th Man podcast, and what a weekend of football it was. Some real big shocks, some really, really good football games, and that's what we're going to be here to discuss over the next hour or so. We'll be looking back, of course, at that devastating Spurs one at the Etihad. Man City, of course, were 52 games unbeaten at home before Spurs went there and won by 4-0. We'll be looking as well at Liverpool, who managed to stretch 8 points clear, and Mo Salah was a big, big hand in that. And of course, there's been talk about his future today as well. Salah conducted an interview in which he says that the club hadn't yet offered him a contract. And as we move closer to December, he believes he's more out than in. We'll be discussing that. And we'll also be looking back at the rest of the weekend's games, including ones for Arsenal and Chelsea. And of course, Chelsea's one meant that Leicester decided to sack Steve Cooper. Was that the right decision? Was it harsh? We'll look into that. We'll discuss the rest of the weekend's games, including a massive one for Wolves at Fulham. Fulham, one of them form teams, of course, stunned by Wolves in a 4-1 victory at Craven Cottage. Some penalty drama at Aston Villa. Things don't seem to be going too well there. And of course, the big news that he led coming into this weekend was, of course, Ruben Amorim was going to take his debut at Ipswich, and it's fair to say that it was underwhelming, but was that to be expected? So, Owen, so much to discuss. Before we do, how are things with yourself?
Can't complain. I'm happy the way things are at the minute in the football sense, and there's a big week ahead for me as a Liverpool fan. Like all steam ahead the Wednesday against Real Madrid, and then on to the big one then Sunday. But I'm sure we'll it'll be an interesting week anyway.
Of course, I've labelled this podcast Spurs Obliterate Man City's home record, and as Liverpool move 8 points clear, two massive bits of news this weekend. And let's start on at the Etihad, and of course, Spurs ended Man City's 52-game unbeaten record. The last team to beat them there was Brentford in November 2022, the week before the World Cup break. So it was the last game before the World Cup break. That's how long Man City have been unbeaten at home. They did lose a penalty shootout to Real Madrid, but in a 90-minute game, and you could even count even over 120 minutes there, they still managed to not lose in normal time or extra time. So, I mean, always a very strong team at home on Man City, despite this run they were on. I think a lot of people fancied Man City to win this, and if Spurs were going to win, it was going to be a smash and grab, or they were going to be at their best and maybe nick it towards the end. Nobody expected Spurs to be that devastating and won by 4-0. And when you're so strong at home, they lose it in that fashion. Has to be worrying for Man City the way Spurs took them apart.
It isn't based on the first 10 minutes. Like I was thinking, right? I was thinking it's going to go the other way after in the first 10 minutes.
Well, if you had to watch the first 10 minutes, and if you had to watch the first 10 minutes, and you didn't get to see the rest of the game, and somebody says it finished 4-0, you would have said it wasn't in the Man City.
But after that, Spurs just, I don't know, it was just sort of like a switch sort of flipped and the game just turned. I think it was on that Madison goal, which for me, I really liked the first goal, but the second goal for me was the best of the bunch. I really liked the move from Son and the wee dink over the keeper. I love that goal. But we'll talk about Spurs in a minute. But Man City, it is worrying, and yes, it is mitigating circumstances. They're missing Rodri, but you cannot fall apart. Just as good as Rodri is, one player shouldn't define 5 losses in a row, and it wasn't even that. Spurs, and as Gary Neville said, like they look slow, they look tired, they look old. It's just Spurs were cutting through them at will, and I thought especially Kyle Walker had a really poor game.
I think the most surprising thing about it all was that Man City have been a team for so many years, have been able to deal with setbacks. We've seen them go 2-0 down at home and come back at times. Never really felt at any stage so they were going to come back, despite I was a wee bit worried because of the Spurs thing. But Man City's best chances came before the first goal in the game. And after that, it was all real half chances that they had. Yep. Vicario done well in goal, to be fair. He did make some good saves. But not after the first couple of chances, they never really had any ones where you thought, oh my God, how have they not scored? Whereas I think of some of the chances the Spurs had in the game that they didn't take. You think about especially the Kulusevski one. Man City never really had a chance like that in the whole game. So It was really
Yeah.
surprising that they were unable to wrestle back any control. I think that was the most surprising thing about it.
I expected, like, even when Man City went 2-0 down, I was thinking, they'll come back here, but Spurs
Because, I
just
mean, there were still 70 minutes in the game at 2-0 when Spurs made it 2-0. So, still a long way to go.
but and as you say, you can't trust Spurs like at the moment. Well,
Well, we've
that's the
seen
thing.
Spurs
They go
this
on.
season already be 2-0 up away from home and get beat.
So I don't know. There's something just not fundamentally right at Man City. And maybe it's just as simple as these players are coming to the end of their
Well,
cycle.
is that
I know
what it
they're
is? Do you think they're on the start of this decline? Do you think this is a changing of the guard now that they're obviously not going to keep losing, but do you think for them
Yeah.
to get back to that level they were at, where they were winning 15, 16 in a row, is unfeasible at the moment?
I genuinely do. Like, I think they need a younger team, because look at their signings in the summer. They brought Gundogan back, and to be fair, he's not been good since he's come back in the games that I've seen him anyway. And then you have De Bruyne, who's always out injured. He's always going to pick up injuries. Rodri, yes, he's only 28, but now with his ACL injury, you don't know how he's going to come back. Will he be the same player? You have
Rico
I know
Lewis,
they
I
have
think
Ruben Diaz.
a lot of responsibility on Rico Lewis to go into that number 6 role. At his age, with his lack of experience in that position, I thought, it's different when he's playing alongside Rodri in there, but they go on there on your own. I mean, it showed that he just isn't ready for it.
He looked weak compared to Spurs'. I can't remember who Spurs actually started. Was it Sarr and Bissouma?
Bissouma, Sarr, and Madison on there.
And that's a lot of physicality for Rico Lewis to deal with. And he's only, what, 18, 19, 20 maybe? So it is a big ask. So it'll be very interesting if they go on in January and get someone in that position, because if they don't, they could fall. It could be a Liverpool Arsenal title race by Sunday evening.
Yeah, of course, you mentioned
Which,
that Rodri's missing. But do you think, even looking at Haaland at the minute, doesn't look the same player? Bernardo Silva's not having the effect that he was. Foden looks like a shadow of a player he was last year. Are these players at Man City suffering from a crisis of confidence? Haaland, who was so reliable in front of goal, I mean, he couldn't sort his feet out for them first couple of chances.
no, he should have scored at least. I think it was the first. Was it the first one he had where he put
We're
it
so
past
used
the
to
post?
Haaland, that first one where he just had it first time and it'd been in the back of the net, and he
Yeah.
took 3-4 touches and then he ended up being deflected wide.
It could be a confidence thing, even for these elite players they've won everything there is they won. Like, they can't do much more. But if you start losing games continuously, the confidence is gonna go. And obviously, for me, I hope it continues on Sunday. I hope their confidence is on the floor. Like, but they will start winning games again. But Pep Guardiola's is on his press. He doesn't know how to fix it, and it seems. I'm not going to say
This
he's
is
out of
only sort of
ideas, but
for the experience, as you say, for the experience that Pep has being one of the best managers. He's never been in a situation like this where he's lost 5 games, so he's probably not. He is fairly new to this.
yeah. And I seen a lot of pundits saying, "Do you remember when he said that Spurs were a Harry Kane team, or Man City a Rodri team?" Like, because
Well, that's it.
you know their
Go ahead.
record when he doesn't play, and you've seen the record when he doesn't play, and he's not going to play again this season. So they have to sort something out, or it is going to be a very difficult season for them. They won the league this year.
Of course, we mentioned Haaland, Foden, players out of form, lacking confidence. But there is players like Gundogan. Maybe that was a mistake to bring him back. I know it was a free transfer, but he's clearly not the same Gundogan we've seen in his first spell at Man City. Kyle Walker has been looking suspect at the back. Do you think, in regards to those two players, it's the end of the era for them? Do you sense that even if Man City start to improve, that we're going to see Walker now time and time again be found out like that, like he did against Timo Werner? And we have seen it in our games this season.
Yep. Well, I'm just going to use it as an example. Like, he'll be up against Diaz probably on Sunday, I would imagine, and Diaz will just burn past him, like, in my opinion. So I think it is. And for Gundogan, as I said there, at the time when he was brought back, everyone was saying, "Oh, what a signing! Oh, this is gonna be great." But he hasn't pulled up any trees. And what age is he? He's 34, 33. So it's a short term fix. So
And
I
you think
think they
about,
definitely need
sorry,
they
go ahead.
definitely need they definitely need a younger style of profile of player now, in my opinion.
I was going to say too. You think about Liverpool's midfield on Sunday, the energy, the physicality, the legs. Man City just won't be able to match that. I know Liverpool will play a slightly different style of play to what Spurs did, but
Yeah.
in the transition, you would back Liverpool's midfielders. They soar past them. You think about Szoboszlai at the weekend there, high press one in the back. He can move through the
He was
thirds. Gravenberch is having
so I
an
was saying
unbelievable
so I was saying Gravenberch, I thought our midfield wasn't great yesterday, but I think off the ball wise, I think they were good.
Yeah, and then you have
So I
McAllister in
do.
there as well. So I mean, it's going to be a very difficult game for Man City to try and get back on track.
Yep. Well, I'm not going to sit here and cry and say I feel sorry for them because I don't. I'm enjoying it while it lasts. And if we go on Sunday and if we go on Sunday and beat them, then I'm saying we have one hand on it.
Yeah. Of course, this run started with the defeat at Spurs in the League Cup. Then it was
Yeah.
Bournemouth. Then it was Sporting Lisbon. Then it was Brighton, and then it was Spurs again. And you think about the Bournemouth game. Bournemouth seen the Spurs game in the week and says, you know what? Let's go at them. Let's go toe-to-toe. Brighton, second half. Let's go toe-to-toe. Spurs, yes, at the weekend. Let's high press them. Let's go toe-to-toe. And they've all
Yeah.
had positive results. You think teams are sensing that they're vulnerable in there without Rodri, that they can press them in, and we've seen force them mistakes like the Gvardiol for the second goal, just passes it inside, and Spurs gobble it up and and that's the difference. Spurs were ruthless, where they haven't been in our games that they've dropped points
Yeah.
on. They were ruthless on Saturday with most of their chances, and teams have beaten Man City in the past. We playing counter-attack football. Spurs under Conte, under Mourinho. This was a very different Spurs performance, the same as the Bournemouth game. McJamie was on here on a Friday night, and he said to me, Bournemouth completely dominated us for most of the game. It was only towards the end when we got a goal back. We started to feed our way back into it. But he says in all these games, the pattern of sitting back against Man City has disappeared. Teams are now willing to come at us and try and win the ball back and break on us quick. And that's what Spurs did to them. And obviously Liverpool have had a different style of play this year. They've been a lot, especially in the bigger games. We've seen against Arsenal, we've seen against Chelsea. They were quite patient in their approach.
Yep.
Do you think watching these games, and of course they'll be doing the video analysis, Liverpool and lead up to the game this week, looking at Man City, will it prompt a change from Liverpool? Do you think they'll be more aggressive, or do you think they'll be happy to trust their approach, let Man City have a bit more time on the ball, and wait for their moments?
I think it could be a bit of both. I think it depends on how the game's going. If we're in control, like as you said, Spurs were ruthless. They take our chances, and Spurs won 4-0. And as you said, it could have been 5, 6, or 7. And that's the difference at the moment when it comes to Liverpool. If Salah's getting in there, he's going to score 1 or 2. So if I'm not saying we're going to go beat them 5, 6, 7, but my point is, if we play the way Spurs did, it could be an hour heavy scoreline, but it will be a difficult game anyway. But I think the fact of us being at home, we should go at them because they are vulnerable at the minute. And I think it was I think it was Gary Neville, and as you know, I'm not his biggest fan, but he said teams are smelling blood against Man City at the minute, and teams aren't afraid to go at them, as you said, because as we discussed, they don't have the legs in the midfield. Like you look at the Brighton game a few weeks ago. They had Baleba, they had Weaver, they just ran rings around them.
Is the worry for Liverpool on Sunday that they haven't particularly been strong starters in games this season, especially recently? Southampton sort of run the front foot early on Sunday there. They started the game quite well. The Brighton game, Liverpool where he played in the first half. The Villa game, it was a tight affair until that goal from the counter-attack. Of course,
Yep.
Liverpool have won those games. But is a worry that if you let Man City have too much of the ball, they can really damage you. I suppose they may be pressing them from the front. It'll be fascinating to see how Slot goes about it, because teams that have been high pressing City recently have had a lot of success. So maybe
Yep.
sitting off them and respecting them and, waiting for the opportunities could be a mistake. Of course, it's easy to sit and say that now because Liverpool have been successful this season with this approach. But I just wonder, would Man City prefer that type of opponent at the moment as opposed to playing? You look at these games they've lost in the Premier League. Brighton, Bournemouth, and Spurs are probably three of the most high-pressing teams in the country, and they've all had success beating them. So it'll be interesting to see, does Slot change it and adapt to Man City, or does he stick with what Liverpool have had so much success this year? It's a really tricky one.
It's gonna be interesting to see, especially because I think in my head, I think because we're at home, and I think the crowd will be really, really up for this one. I know there's a thing about Anfield always quiet, but I think this one they'll really be up for. Which will, even if Slot says sit back a bit, I think it'll give the. I think if the crowd's on it, I think the players will be on it as well. So I think the crowd is a big part to play in it. If the crowd is up for it, which I expect them to be, I think Liverpool will be at them from the first whistle.
How do you finish off Man City? I mean, how do they get back on track? Of course, Feyenoord at home in the Champions League tomorrow night. You could look at that and think, right, handy game day to get back, to get a one at least. But no game's easy when you've just lost 5 in a row. It doesn't matter who you're playing. There's pressure on this tomorrow night. They won't want to be getting into that Liverpool game on the back of a 6th defeat or a draw. They'll want to at least get a win to get some sort of winning feeling back, because they haven't won a game now since the middle of October.
We're nearly at Christmas, so that's not something. Well, that's not something you associate with Man City. How do they get back on track? Well, they have to win their next 2 games, and obviously, I don't really care how they do tomorrow night because it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant to us. But I hope on Sunday that their form doesn't get back to normal. But as you said, they have to go and win tomorrow night and try to get back on track. But if they lose tomorrow night, then their confidence will be, or draw tomorrow, their confidence will be on the floor on Sunday, which could play in their hands.
Yeah, do you expect them to get back on track tomorrow night?
You would think so. I can't see them losing six games in a row. But stranger things have happened. It's sort of once you're on a roll like that, you've seen it a few years ago
during the COVID season. Liverpool lost 6 straight home games. I know it was no crowds, but.
I was just going to come on that. I think we lost 6 home games in a row. We lost like Fulham. We lost I think Leicester as well. So once you had a run, it's like Liverpool at the minute. Once you're winning, you always find ways to win. It seems, but they can go the opposite way. Once you start losing, it's like every game you play, you feel like you're going to lose. So if they don't get a positive result tomorrow, I'll be even more confident going on this Sunday.
Yeah. And let's move on to Spurs because it was a fantastic one.
Yep.
I think arguably their best one in the Premier League era for a number of reasons. Definitely in my lifetime, but I'm even thinking back, they didn't have a great 90 period in the league. They go to the 4 times league champions in a row, unbeaten at home for 52 games. And beat them 4-0, which is pretty incredible. So I think it probably is their best ever one in the Premier League era. You rarely see champions turned over like that, and especially a team like Man City who have been so successful for a number of years. But it really was their highest high of this season. You never know what you're going to get from Spurs. JEKYLL and HYDE. 1 week they can be up there, and the next week it can be rock bottom. They think they lost the Ipswich 2-1 at home, and go and beat Man City 4-0 in the space of 2 weeks is pretty incredible. What did you make of it all? Because you were pretty confident that Spurs would be on the end of a beating. I wasn't too confident. I fancied Man City 1-1 quite well. But it does say on the podcast to Jamie on Friday night, no outcome in this game would surprise me because we've seen Spurs be devastating this year already. We know that Man City were vulnerable. And we've seen the first 10 minutes, if Man City had got that goal, it could have went the other way. And there was always a chance it could be an entertaining draw as well. So no outcome really surprised me. But they won in that margin by 4 goals. That was a bit of a shock.
You don't see Man City concede 4 goals anywhere, let alone at home, and let alone after 53 games unbeaten. So for Spurs, it probably is, as you say, their biggest one in our both our lifetimes, really, in the Premier League era. But again, as I said, as we all say, it's can they back it up?
Well, where do you think that ranks in Premier League performances of all time? Because I think it's a game nobody will ever forget. You know, the fact that I remember Liverpool beating Chelsea, and Darren will probably remember this. Back, I think it might have been in 06, Alonso scored, and it was Chelsea's first home defeat for about 4 years at Stamford Bridge. And it was only 1-0, but at the time it was seen as a massive, massive one because nobody was getting any success at Stamford Bridge.
And they only conceded 15 goals or something.
There was a season they only conceded 15 goals. But just in terms of, you think about Man City 6-1-1 at Old Trafford. Where does this rank? I mean, it must be in the top 4 or 5 ones ever.
I would top there anyway. For me, maybe I'm biased, but for me, nothing will ever beat the 7-0 against United. Nothing will ever beat that for me. But in terms of like non-Liverpool, for me, it's up there, like, because as I said, when I seen that Spurs lineup, no Van de Ven, no Romero, I was like, oh, Spurs could be in for a bad one here. And as you say, after the first 10 minutes, if Haaland put away one of his chances, that's how old you are, Darren. You remember them games? But no, if Haaland had put away one of his chances, it could have been a different game. But that's football, isn't it? Like, it's a 90-minute game, and Spurs read it out for 10 minutes, and Man City couldn't lay a glove on them after that, really.
We've discussed this so much about the Spurs and consistency, but we've seen this season 4-0 against Man City, 4-1 against Villa, 4-1 against West Ham, 4-0 against Everton, and 3-0 at Old Trafford. I mean, if they could do that 9 weeks out of 10, they would be a real threat to anyone in this league. I think Jim White said it in TalkSport today. He says, always when you're playing Spurs at the minute, you will have that lingering, they might not turn up, but he says you wouldn't want to take the chance because they've got form this year for absolutely rinsing teams when they're at it. I mean, every week they play well. At the minute, they seem to put 4 past teams.
As I think Jamie Redknapp said after the game, it would drive you mad though, because if you're a Spurs fan, because it would not surprise me if Spurs are at home to Fulham next week and they lose 2-1 or something. So they need to, but then they could go play Liverpool at home and it could be a 1. So it's a bit mad at the minute with Spurs. I don't know, we go back and forth and laugh and joke, but it is like, as you say, once they click, they do batter teams. But it's getting that done on a consistent basis, because if they go and lose, if they go and lose to Fulham, I'm not going to count the Europa League game because nobody really cares about that at this point. Because Spurs are home in Salem. But if Spurs go and lose to Fulham on Sunday, is anyone going to remember the Man City game from the week before? That's the thing. So they need to get. As I said,
no, it says 100%. It has to be more consistent.
Yeah, they need to go on a 2, 3, 4, 5 game, not even 1-1, just unbeaten.
Yeah, they still haven't found that knack at the minute where they can sort of grind out a result. They've won 6 games in the league.
Who do you play after Fulham?
Bournemouth away and Chelsea at home. I mean, I say they've won 6 games in the Premier League this year, and every one of them they've won every one of them they've won 4 by 3 goals, 1 by 4 goals, and 1 by 2 goals. So they haven't even won a game in the Premier League this year by 1 goal. I mean, that's a crazy stat so far. And of course, they've only drawn 1 game. And it was the first game away at Leicester, which they probably should have won, but they've lost the rest of their games by 1 goal. So I mean, they're just very up and down. But it does remind me of the early days of Klopp, where I remember Liverpool going to Man City and winning 4-1, and they blitzed them in the first half, where they were 3-0 up, I think, at half time, and they won the game 4-1.
And then the week after, we lost it.
They lost the game a week or 2 later, and I think Spurs are on that very early stage of they're showing glimpses of how good they can be, but they're probably just a wee bit short of real the quality every week.
Yeah, I do think Spurs now are better than what Liverpool were when Klopp first came in, though. That's what I would say. I think there is a better squad than we had at that time, I think.
I understand
Maybe.
that point, but if you think back, Liverpool back then he still had Coutinho, didn't he?
Coutinho, but then we had the likes of Joe Allen and Colo Torre, and
Yeah,
it's madness.
and what you would
think
also
Klopp's
say is Klopp or Ange also had a DB losing Harry Kane in his first summer window. But I
That's
think to
true.
his credit, he's used
Yeah.
that money quite well, and they've replaced. And
Yeah.
you think of the players that's come in: Van de Ven, Madison, Johnson. I think at the start was getting wrote off, but he's been really useful. They've invested that money quite well, and like there is games you kind of think, especially last season, they did must Kane. But I think Solanke's come in and been really, really good. I thought even when he's not scoring, he's having a big impact. He's pressing from the front. He's holding the ball up. And he's actually a lot quicker than what I thought he was. He can get away from people.
Yeah.
And it was a lovely assist for Porro.
Yeah, I that Porro goal was good. The only thing I would say about Spurs, there's two players that disappointed me because I like Spurs as a team. I like watching them, but I think Romero and Udogie have been pretty poor this season. I don't know how you feel, but for me, them two have been
put in his best performance there, and so I thought that was as good as he's played all
It
season. But
was,
he has been poor, and I think
it was
Romero.
very good. It was very good.
Yeah, and I think, as you say, Romero's been suspect a lot of errors. But one thing that quite went unnoticed on Saturday for a lot of pundits, which I thought was Spurs were missing their two centre backs, and it was hardly spoken about. And that's credit to how good the Dragusin and Davis played.
Yeah, because if it had went the other way, it would have been. Oh, that's why he must Van de Ven when's Van de Ven back? By the way, is he back for Sunday or is he still out? Or?
He's back for Liverpool, and I don't worry about that.
Nah, that's all right. He'll pull his hamstring before then.
Romero's back in the next week, and I think Van de Ven, I was told mid-December. So he's out for Norway.
That's well, he'll hopefully pulls his hamstring again before he plays Liverpool, because I think if he does,
Van de Ven might not get back in the team.
I don't know about that. I think if you go to Liverpool, line up with Ben Davis, I think we could have a field day there.
Well, you say that, but then you know what I mean? So it's one of them things. I think on any given day, these players can turn up, and that's been happening too often for Spurs over the years.
Especially for Ben Davis, because he's a left back too. He's not even a centre back.
Do you think now that could be the turning point for the Spurs players? They believe, because I'm not sure if it's a lack of consistency, because they've shown in 4 or 5 games this year how good they can be, and they've dismantled the opposition. So, you know, it has to be a lack of belief or a lack of mentality that they're not taking our games as serious as ours. And like, every good team they've played, I think they've turned up well. I think of the Newcastle game they lost. I thought they were the better team that day. The Arsenal game I thought was tight as anything. There was very little in it, and that was against a good Arsenal team and matching them. The Man United game blew them away at Old Trafford. I know Man United have been struggling, but they're still a big name and it's still a hard place to go. The Villa game, they blew them away. West Ham have been, as a derby game, turned up, blew them away. And Man City, they turned up twice in the Cup and the League and blew them away in one of those games. So, I mean, it's been the other games where they've been expected to do better and they haven't. So it has to be a lack of belief or a lack of concentration. I mean, surely, I think Madison said it after his interview with Sky, that has to be the one that they set the standard for now. Anything below that isn't acceptable.
And I was going to come on to that. I think it's one of them things where you stroll up against Man City, like we're on for a game here, but the Ipswich game a few weeks ago, it just sort of felt like Spurs expected to turn up and win, because it's Ipswich, but it doesn't work like that. And we've seen we'll get on it when we talk about Man United, but Ipswich should have won that game yesterday. If it wasn't for Onana, they would have scored 2 or 3. So I think Spurs just need to treat every game as if you're playing a Liverpool, a Man City, and Arsenal.
Yeah, because I mean the problems they've had over the years has been the bigger games. They've always gone to places and not turned up. I mean, they're unbeaten in their last 4 trips to Manchester. 2 draws last season, 2 wins this year. I mean, they've proven now they can go to these places and get. They went to Arsenal last year and got a draw. You know, they've proven in the last couple of seasons. You went to Villa and won 4-0 last season, so they have form for going to teams and getting results now. It's just the consistency level of it. But I mean,
the only ground Spurs can't win it is Anfield. Apart, it seems
Stamford Bridge too seems to be one big struggle of.
No, Stamford Bridge. No.
But last
year was.
We'll see.
How did you do at Stamford Bridge last year? I can't remember.
Beat 2-0. We were awful. Same week as Liverpool. It was 3 days before.
That's right. We were 4-0 up in mine, then Richard.
But we were awful.
Liverpool Spurs games are always mental for some reason.
I think it's going to be an hour by going come December. But here, Ange has come under a lot of criticism at times this year from the media. People have labelled him Fraudacoglu or Pasta Noclu. What do you think that's unfair? I mean, they have won games quite well when they've been at their best. They are a big threat to teams now. I think anybody playing Spurs, the man thinks, do you know what? If they're at it, we could be in for a real tough afternoon. And I don't think Spurs have had that. I wouldn't say they've got the fear factor yet, but there is on their day that they're starting to show that they can be a real force. You know, they haven't had that for a number of years since Pochettino left. You think people have been, there's a narrative out there with Ange that he's been in the Japanese league, the Australian league, the Scottish league, and he treats everybody like it's, they're sort of minor opposition. But I mean, he's thrown that out the window and he's gone and played in Man City, 4 times league winners and done to them what he done to loads of teams at Celtic. So, I mean, this man surely knows what he's doing, doesn't he?
He does, I think the media. It's if Ange goes and wins a few games, it'll be if Ange goes and wins a few games now, it'll be my God, he's the best manager ever. And then if they go and lose a few games, it'll be he needs out. It wasn't a few weeks ago we were talking about where he needs this runner. It could be gone at the end of the season. So football's a funny game and it's up and down and it could.
I think that was coming from the media before, and I don't think that was coming from inside the club.
No, but there was a few fans too. Yeah, I heard as we spoke about. There was one certain fan that you might know that was very, very critical of Ange. So no, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, so I just think he's obviously a very good
picture and see these big results they've had this season. And that's not by design, by fluke. They've done that by design.
I obviously as rival fans, if any team loses, like if Spurs lose next week against Fulham, I will be giving you like some slagging, like, and you'll do the same if we lose this city. So that's just the way it is. But he's obviously a talented coach, and he knows what he's doing. So I think the media is over sensationalizes it, as you say.
I think that's a big game for Spurs next week. They have to follow that up. I mean, a lot of talk about on TalkSport today. Simon Jordan says there's no doubt Spurs have shown this season that they can win a trophy if they find the best version of themselves in these games. He says, Man United, you've seen on Sunday, I will speak about them. He says, at home, on form, you'd fancy Spurs, they won that. So there's no excuses there for not beating Man United at home in the Cup, and then all of a sudden you're in the semi-final. He says, you look at the Europa League, as they're a better team in it than Spurs. It's up for debate, but they're one of the favourites. They won that. So there's enough there, do you think, for Spurs? They believe they can have some sort of success this season?
I mean, obviously the Europa League's a weird one because I was thinking last season we were going to walk that competition, and ultimately
Liverpool took Atlanta probably too lightly, and they got punished. Yeah. And that's the danger for Spurs. Spurs have been shown in the Premier League this season what happens when you take teams too lightly.
I remember that. I thought I was when we got it, even fans, I think, me included, I think when we got Atalanta in that draw, I was like, I took it to the final, and Atalanta ended up winning the whole thing. So just shows you football's a funny game. But I do think Spurs fans should believe they can win a trophy. Now, out of all the trophies that they're fighting for, the only one I think that there's 2 of them that they could realistically win. I think the League Cup and the Europa League. The FA Cup's a bit of a weird one because you don't know at the start of it, you don't know who the draw is. But I think you should definitely be aiming for the League Cup and the Europa League. Obviously, I don't want you to win the League Cup because we're still in it. So I hope he's fair on that one. But I think definitely the Europa League is there to be won.
And of course, before we leave Spurs, man of the match on Saturday, birthday as well. It was a great birthday for James Maddison. Of course, has come under a lot of pressure from Spurs fans, from the English media, that he had to do more. Is that the frustrating thing with Maddison, that on his day, he could probably play in any football team in the world? He's seen how good he was on Saturday. We just haven't seen enough of that, after those first sort of 10 games of last season. I haven't seen enough performances like that from Maddison.
It reminds me about of different players maybe, but it reminds me about a Szoboszlai in a way. Because you mind when Szoboszlai last season first came in, he started brilliantly, and Liverpool fans were thinking, "Oh, we have a player on our hands," and it sort of
I
dipped a
couldn't
bit.
believe that was his first goal for Liverpool on Sunday since January.
So obviously, he scored last goal he scored was when we whapped Chelsea 4-1 mind the Anfield last year.
Yeah, crazy. But Madison, I think, is going to be the key for Spurs. So let's move
Yeah.
on and talk about Liverpool because, of course, they won yesterday by 3-2, 2-1 down, of course, and they turned it around at bottom of the table, Southampton. Look, a lot of people were saying this could be a big scoreline, but I always thought it would be tighter than what people thought it would be. Just on the evidence that Liverpool don't seem to blow teams away too often in the Premier League under this new coach. Or in the Leverkusen one and the United one at Old Trafford. I can't think of any others where they have sort of scored 3-4 goals and dismantled the opposition. And I also think as well, Southampton are getting better by the weeks. Yes, they're still making mistakes, but I think their general football is getting better. But it was a ropey game, possibly, but it was a ropey game. And it's definitely, I know we're going to speak about some of the decisions in the game. And there's a debate about the penalty, the first one that Southampton got. But there's an argument that Liverpool had so much fortune from Southampton mistakes that won them the game.
Aye, it was a weird game. Obviously coming back off an international break, you don't know what you're going to get from your team. I thought for me, I don't know. You watched it as well, and I don't know what was wrong with Kanate. He just didn't know what he was doing at times, and we started very slow as we have been. But I just think. As you say, if it wasn't for them Southampton mistakes, I could be sitting here having a completely different conversation. But thankfully, they made them mistakes, and we had the players to capitalize on it. But I do think Southampton's penalty was a joke. Like, it was a foul, yes, but I don't know how they made that decision. They say it was inside the box.
It's one of those ones, right? Where
but I will say,
it did look outside. Right? The more you looked at it, right? It did look outside. The more you looked at it, but can they definitely say it was? You know, it's very, very close to the line. Was there part of his foot on the line? It was so tight that I think if it had been given as a free kick, it wouldn't have been overturned for a penalty. It was one of those ones where it was just so tight they didn't want to get involved.
That's the frustration. But I will say I do think we were lucky not to give away a second penalty as well. I think
I don't know. I don't know how they thought it was a foul the other way. I really don't. I thought that was a mind-boggling decision.
I agree with that one. So I will as much as I hammer referees, but I will say that Liverpool got away with one there. But I also think again another one. I also think Lallana at the time I thought it was a yellow card. I thought fine, but I think when I seen it back, I think he was very fortunate to stay on the pitch.
There's been consistency with those ones. We've seen the one with the Leicester and Chelsea game too. People thought red, but they've been sticking with that yellow card for those types of tackles this season.
Well, the one against the Ndidi one, I thought was a certain red. That was an awful.
Really, that's the thing at the moment.
Do you think it's because of the Curtis Jones thing?
He's asking, do we think Lallana was a red? You think it was a red?
I don't know what you think. I didn't at the time, but when I seen it back, I was like,
tackle. It was a bad tackle, but I think they've been letting yellows, so they've been letting them off of yellows this season, so they've been consistent there.
Roy Keane said
thought it was a red too.
Roy Keane said they went off the reputation that Lallana's not a dirty player, and that's why he didn't get a red. So maybe. And then he goes off. He goes off injured. Then we hamstring.
I thought the Southampton goalkeeper was suspect all day, and it really cost him in the end. And then the substitute making that crazy decision where he's taking control of the ball with his hand. Have to say, for how good Southampton were at times in the game, they just can't get away from them mistakes they're making every week.
No, I don't know. I didn't even see the first goal because if you remember, it was on a replay, and then I heard the commentator saying, "Oh, Southampton have played their way into trouble," and then the next thing it was in the net. So when I seen the replay, I think it was Harwood Bellis saying to him, "Don't kick it, don't play it in there because they'll kill us."
I think think that's the directors from the manager, but he wants them to keep playing out. And
He
you know
said
what?
that.
I thought
He
Southampton
said
were
that. He
excellent.
said they were up until that point, but he said Russell Martin said that it's him that's telling him to do that, but he must be like, why? Because they're getting killed every week.
And
Like,
the keeper can't play with his feet. He's just not that type of goalkeeper. So, but look, I mean, we've seen this before. There'll be a lot of teams looking at Russell Martin and thinking, you know what, I want my team to play like that and be better players. So I think he's doing it for his own benefit as well. But Southampton are definitely improving, but just at the moment, fine margins are going against them and they're making too many mistakes. And you give Liverpool chances, you're going to get punished.
Apparently, the penalty we got, apparently it wasn't for the handball. Apparently, it was for Nunes getting pulled.
Well, it's a penalty one way they are. I mean, it was definitely handball.
Yeah. I don't know what he was doing because he chested it and then he sort of just flicked it with his arm. And then it's like, what are you doing?
Does that worry you that supposedly playing the worst team in the league and needed a lot of luck, they won the game?
No, it doesn't worry me. Like, everyone was saying we were going to go beat them easily. I didn't think so. Every game in this league is tough. Every team plays a style of football, so sometimes you have to win ugly, and that's what we did. And at the end of the day, it doesn't worry me in the slightest when we're sitting 8 points clear at the top of the league.
Yeah, of course, Mo Salah played a massive part in the one.
That worries me.
Sorry,
that worries me more than anything. That their headline worries me more than anything.
There was a stat come up on the screen that Salah has been directly involved in 67% of Liverpool's goals this season. That's higher than any other player, which tells you he's the most important player. Maybe apart from maybe Rodri, he's been out, but I wonder would you see the same sort of decline if Salah was out? I don't know, but this boy for Liverpool this season has gone up on our level. I think he's been that important, and of course he did that interview that comes out today. That he hasn't yet been offered a contract. That's not to say there's not been dialogue and there's been talks, but he hasn't been officially been offered a new contract yet. He says we're almost in December. Owen, we're about 4 weeks away. Four weeks before he can negotiate a new contract with a new team. Is it getting to the point now where you're starting to really worry that he might not be signing up?
Nah, I'm not worried. I'm more worried about Trent not signing up. I think that one's done and dusted. I think Ange's away, as we spoke about before we came on. But I think we saw. Sky Sports reported. Fair enough.
I think it's really up in the air.
It's a game of games.
Well, that's it, right? And I'll tell you why. Salah's not going to budge, in my opinion, because yes, he might have a love for Liverpool, but I think he believes he's earned the right to a 3-year contract. If he wants it, he's not going to change that. I think he believes that he's entitled to that. He probably believes he's not entitled to the wage cut. So I think the onus is on Liverpool here to match him, or he's going to go somewhere else. I think that's a worrying thing. I don't see Salah coming back and saying, right, I'll accept 2 years. I think he probably thinks he can get 3 years somewhere else on similar wages. And he knows his worth at Liverpool. And I think the way these games are going, it puts more pressure on the club. They match his demands because where would they be 100%. This season? It shows you that the stats don't lie to you that he is as important to anybody as he is to Liverpool. So without him, there's no doubt Liverpool wouldn't be in the position they're in, and he knows that. He's a smart man. So I think the onus is on the club. They be the ones they make a compromise in these talks. And if they don't, and they're on Monday, I think it only ends one way, and that's Salah moving on.
Nah, I won't get that. Surely the club are smart enough to know that, like, you can see it. I've seen that Vinicius Junior's up, but they have Mbappe, so I wouldn't be getting too excited. Mbappe up against Conor Bradley. That's gonna be scary. Because Trent's not fit, or maybe Trent does fit and he just doesn't want to play against his future team. Don't get me started. But no, we have to sign Salah. Like, there's not a word. I would understand it if he was declining and if he wasn't doing well. But for me, I don't know if you agree, but for me, he's the best player in the world at the minute. There's no one playing better. Maybe Rafinha at Barcelona, but I think Salah's on a different level. And if he wants a 3-year deal, give him the 3-year deal. Like, if he wants a wage increase, give him.
They play devil's advocate, right? Is there a feeling in the club that they could get roasted here with Salah? He could have a great season like this and then suddenly decline, and then they're stuck with a player on massive wages for 3 years that they can't shift. I wonder, we've seen it with Aubameyang. We've seen it with Aubameyang at Arsenal. We've seen it with Ozil at Arsenal. We've seen it with Rooney at United. There's history of players who've had unbelievable careers, been so important, signed a contract when everything's going brilliant, and then have just suddenly declined. I wonder, is that in that they feel that they could be on the wrong end of this business deal?
Maybe but I don't think I would happen with Salah. He reminds me of, maybe not in ability wise, but he reminds me of Ronaldo in terms of he looks after himself brilliantly. The mentality he has is next to none. He said in that interview too. He said, "I want to win the Premier League. I want to win the Champions League. I want to continue to score goals." So he said,
not so much that he's here for a payday. That's not what I'm sort of getting at. The fact that these numbers he's posting now, do the club think it's unrealistic he'll be doing that in 2 years' time? That's the only thing I can think.
But then what if he goes to, I don't know, where could he go? I'm going to discount Saudi, because if he goes there, then he's far too good. Say he goes to, I don't know, what's a team? Give me a team that needs a right winger. I'm trying to think.
Right, just on the other side of it, right? We Walker. For example, Walker. Imagine Man City had to give Walker a 3-year contract at the end of last season, and now looking on this season, there's no guarantee. I think the club are being very, very cautious about this. They obviously feel always they'd have threw that 3-year contract down and says, "Here, take it." They obviously feel that there's a bit of a chance that they could be on the wrong end of this deal. That's the only reason they haven't offered them it.
But then who do you get to replace him? As Melissa already put out, they buy a player for 100 million. There's no way you're getting the same numbers as Salah. And yes, he might have it up, but for me, it's a no-brainer. You give him the contract, you give him what he wants. I don't care what he's asking for. You give it to him.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. But I think we're going to have a lot more twists and turns in this contract.
They are two. They are two contracts. I think Trent is. I think he's. I would say I'm 80% sure he's leaving, and Van Dijk. I think Van Dijk's staying.
And you've said to me Liverpool haven't been taken serious. Do you think that there's still people out there that are being, they're not really giving Liverpool the credit for these ones? Or I've seen a lot of Arsenal fans saying yesterday that they seen that Southampton result and says, well, every game's a struggle at the minute for Liverpool. They're coming out the right end of it, but it seems every team they play in the Premier League, it's very, very tight.
Well, you would expect that if it's the so-called best league in the world. You're not going to blitz teams every week.
No, of course not. But I think they're looking at it going, well, 2-1 down yesterday with 25 minutes to go. Against supposedly the worst team in the league. They're looking at that and going, well, they got a goalkeeper mistake and a penalty, one of them. Can you see why some people are doubting how they can do this over the full season? Like, if it's going to be this tight every week?
I can, but then you have to give. I can as well, but if you look at it, you have to give us respect for doing it.
100%.
Like Arsenal could have lost to Southampton a few weeks ago, if I remember right. They were very poor against Southampton. Arsenal should have lost. Arsenal should have lost against Aston Villa earlier on the season. So you win games. In football, you win games you don't deserve it, and you lose games you don't deserve it. So it'll balance itself. We will lose a game. Like, I'm not sitting here going we're going to win every game, but I think there's certain pundits, Gary Neville, that are just even the other night when Spurs. Even this really annoyed. Even the other night when Spurs with Man City, the first thing came out of his mouth was, "Oh, Arsenal be licking their lips," and I'm going, "We're 9 points ahead of them. What are you talking about?"
No, I kind of get the frustration when I can. Hey, a lot of talk about Sunday, of course, and it's going to dominate the media this week. Liverpool, Man City, of course. I think that being such a high-profile game, you're not really hearing too much talk about the Real Madrid game on the media. It's all about Liverpool, Man City. Of course, the fans will be excited for Real Madrid. But I suppose there's not a lot of jeopardy in the Madrid game for Liverpool because they've won every game so far.
Obviously, I don't want to go out and get a tanking. I want to, even if we lose, say we lose 2-1, 3-1, I'll be like, fair enough. Obviously, I want to beat Madrid because I'm fed up. I'm fed up losing to Madrid. I want to beat them at some point. But if you're going to lose to them when there's nothing really on the line. Like if we, as I said, if I said to you yesterday, if we beat Southampton, lose to Madrid, and beat Man City, I'm not going to come out of that complaining.
Yeah. I heard a lot of Liverpool fans says they would even take a draw on Sunday because they're so far ahead. But do you think is that the wrong mentality they have? You think they should be trying to deliver an hour punch to Man City because you don't want to let this team back on either.
Nah, when they're down on the floor and they're vulnerable, you have to hit them. There's the old saying.
If Man City were to go to Anfield and win on Sunday, do you think it changes everything for both teams?
Not necessarily, because we'll still be 5 points ahead. So the position doesn't really change.
But just in terms of momentum, do you think that changes things for both teams?
It could do.
All of a sudden, if you're if that goes to 5 points, they've just won at Anfield, and then you're going to Newcastle away, and that's going to be a difficult game, and you draw there, all of a sudden that gap could be cut again. So I think it's a huge game, and I don't think it's one Liverpool will be looking at thinking we can afford a draw.
No, like don't get me wrong. If we draw, I'm not going to say it's a terrible result, like because we'll still have the 8-point gap on them. But I think maybe this is just me being biased, but I think Liverpool win this game as not heavy favourites, but we go on as favourites.
I think they are heavy favourites for this game.
Yeah, the fact of it being at home and the fact of Man City not playing well at the minute, so I'm going on it. Not expecting
and Man City have came there. Man City have came there in their pomp and struggled to win. Only the COVID season was the only time they won there.
That's what I was going. They've only won at Anfield in the COVID season since that's the only one since what? Maybe if Darren's still watching, he can tell me. But I think it's 2002.
Yeah, so they haven't got form for one of them. And next 3 games in the league: Man City at home, Newcastle away, Everton away. Crucial period.
Yep. Oh, it's these are the big ones. If we can come out of them 3 games, 7 points. Say, I'm saying. One hand on it.
One hand on it. Huge, obviously. Those 3 games in the space of 6 days, starting on Sunday. Big games coming and looking forward on.
I'll ask you as a rival fan. Well, you're not really Liverpool's rival, but you know what I mean. If Liverpool won on Sunday, do you say we've won it, or do you say there's still a long way to go? Like I don't know.
A long way to go yet. No. I think it's a big step, and I think Man City will be looking at it, going how do we make this back, But the fact that Arsenal had that form last year of going on a great run gives them a snuff. And I think December is going to be a great month for Arsenal in terms of the fixtures they have. I think they're going to mop up most, if not all, their points. I'm looking at their games. I think West Ham away, they're in a bad way. I think that we don't know how West Ham will do tonight. Maybe Lopetegui, if it's a bad night, could be gone. And it's a different manager on Saturday. That might change things.
I forgot
we'll see. The current West Ham team playing Arsenal, I can only see Arsenal winning that game. I think after that they've got United at home. I think it's a good time to play United because Amorim is not going to have what he's seen it on Sunday and we'll speak about it. They're just not ready for this Amorim style of play yet. It's going to take time. I think Arsenal's hitting them at a good time, and especially at home, Arsenal are pretty strong. And then I think they play who is it? Everton. Everton at home. I think that's a Palace away. I think that's an hour game. The one Boxing Day. If you play Ipswich at home, I think that's an hour game. The one in Brentford. After that, I think they're going to have a really good month. So I think Liverpool will have to be pretty consistent to keep their 9-point gap of them. And if that gap was to be cut to 4 or 5 points come the new year, then all of a sudden you're not thinking about Man City, you're thinking about Arsenal, and you're thinking, well, they've got form for running teams close in the last couple of years, and they've been pretty strong last year in the second half. So a long way to go. But I think this week's a big one for Liverpool. 7-9 points. I think it's an unbelievable return for Liverpool if they can get the free ones. But look, I have to be honest. Liverpool are finding ways to win. I was going to say, as although Liverpool are finding ways to win, I could easily see them losing one of those 3, and then maybe even drawing another one. I think Man City is the most winnable, to be honest, based on the form. I think at home they'll beat them. I think Newcastle away is very losable. I know Liverpool have a great record against Newcastle, but not too many teams do go to Newcastle and win, especially when it's a big team. I've struggled there.
We're the only ones to do it.
Well, that's it, and
under how.
it's a night game. The atmosphere will be electric, and they will come after you. They'll press you from the front, and it will be a difficult game. And I think Everton away, last Goodison derby, you know how they're going to play. They're going to pump it long, make it difficult. And better Liverpool teams than this, I think, have gone into Everton and struggled. So definitely, there's jeopardy in these 3 games this week, and I think Liverpool, if they can get 7 points, would be a really good return.
I agree with you. I think we'll 1-1 draw one. No, I think we'll 1-2 and draw one. I'm not decided on which yet.
If we won these next 3, they'll say the next 3 are tough as well. Was like them 10. Well, I can understand that as well, but I think because these are in such quick succession, 6 days between the 3 games, that
and you have to take an account. We could pick up injuries and stuff. I hope we don't, but we could.
Yeah. And of course the game on Wednesday night, there's a quick turnaround the Saturday morning. It's Everton's cup final. Like, they're not going to get down without a fight. And I think Everton over the last bar that shocking start, they've tightened up at the back, and they're getting themselves involved in these tight games, and they're keeping clean sheets again. So I think that'll be a tough game as well. It's even like Arsenal and their pomp and the Invincibles. When they went to White Hart Lane, they always says it was a hard game, and Spurs were Brock at that time. And it's a bit like this with Liverpool and Everton over the last few years. Liverpool have been flying, Everton have been struggling, and Everton have had their fair share of results at Goodison Park.
They beat us last year there 2-0, wasn't it? But I think I agree with you. If we, I don't know if we will, but if we come out of these next 3 games with 9 points, I'll be ecstatic.
Well, that's it. I would nearly go. You would nearly be wouldn't be far wrong saying one hand on the title end, because it puts huge pressure on the other teams. They won their games to keep the gap. So, big week coming next week for Liverpool in the Premier League. And let's look at the rest of the weekend's results. Let's start in the order of the kickoff time. So let's start with a 12:30 game on Saturday. Of course, Chelsea went to Leicester and won 2-1. Maresca on his return. And I think it was a bit of a shock that it came this quick. But Steve Cooper was sacked by Leicester yesterday evening. Leicester. Well, to be fair, you called it, and I'll let you have your say now, actually, because Leicester, the word coming out of Leicester was there was a lack of unity between the players and Cooper. They didn't really fancy his tactics, and there was a lack of connection from the fans. And even the games that they got results on, it wasn't particularly justifiable.
No, they weren't.
Think about the draw against Spurs; they were battered for most of the game. As just a reference point for this. So, Owen, it was a surprise to me, but to be fair, you did call this last week.
I said this as soon as they lost that game. I said he's gone, because there was moan and groans throughout the game. Like when they were going at Chelsea, they passed back. The players didn't look like they had a clue what they were doing. They were so open at the back as well. And I think a lot of it has to do with the Nottingham Forest connection too. Like when you go to Forest and then Leicester, you're not going to be liked by the Leicester fans. So I think it was a strange decision to appoint him in the first place. I myself don't think he's a great coach. Maybe you do. I don't think he's a tremendous coach. But it'll be interesting to see where Leicester go from here.
I think he's done a great job at Forest under difficult circumstances. Forest are a big club. He was a manager to get them out of the Championship back into the Premier League, kept them up in that first season. He had a lot of players coming in and out that he wasn't picking. He dealt with it quite well. He'd done a great job at Swansea before that. Jamie Carragher speaks highly of him when he's worked at Liverpool. Do you think he's potential to be top level, or manage at one of the bigger clubs? Probably not. But would he have kept Leicester up? Look, they were 16th in the league. I think Leicester would take 16th at the end of the season.
I just don't think. I don't think he was happy there, and I don't think the players were happy with him, and I don't think the fans were happy with him. So I think it's best for all if he moves on. But it'll be interesting to see where Leicester are going. I know you think it'll be.
Initially, they wanted Graham Potter in the summer, and apparently they walked away because it was taking too long to do. But they still would like Potter to come on. David Moyes has been linked, and apparently would like the opportunity to go on there. It'll be interesting. Potter for me is a project manager, and I think Leicester really just want to keep their head above water this season. So Moyes on a short term would make more sense, but could you then lose Graham Potter to another club? that's the risk they have to weigh up.
It's a weird one because Graham Potter seems to be turning down jobs. Like I think he thinks he should be at the top level, but for me, he's levels like a West Ham. He's not for me. He's a good manager, but for me, he's seen it when he went to Chelsea. I know it's a bit of a basket case there, but he doesn't seem to be able to handle big egos. So for me, I would go for like a David Moyes day at the end of the season and see how it goes.
Yeah. Of course, Maresca has had a great start at Chelsea, sitting third in the table, playing great football. And he seems to be getting the best out of some of the other players that were struggling, like Madueke and Jackson seem to be coming to the party. Enzo scored for them at the weekend. Lavia, Casado have come on and done well. Things starting to turn and Bowley and that consortium's favour now that maybe there was a master plan behind it after all.
I don't know. It's as much as they're playing well, it's sort of the opposite to Spurs, isn't it? At the minute. They can beat the teams they're supposed to be beating, but they can't beat the big teams.
Yeah, and even look for how good they were against Leicester. They could have threw it away too. They've got that on them that they can. Sanchez and goals and a nightmare for them. When he has the ball, his feet are going. There's going to be. It's a bit like Alex McCarthy yesterday. When Sanchez had the ball at his feet on Saturday, the Leicester fans were doing the whole like trying to unnerve him. So I think they. And funnily enough, I don't know if you've seen this last week, they were linked with Kelleher. So it'll be interesting to see if they go in the goalkeeping department next year. Because I think they need to improve. There's been a lot of talk too about them needing a striker, but I don't know if they necessarily do need one there. Jackson's been in fine form. Let's move on to the 3 o'clock kickoff. So it looked like it could be a potentially tricky game for Arsenal, but they dispatched Forest in devastating fashion. 3-0 some great goals. And it looked a bit more free-flowing, what Arsenal fans want to see. Do you think as Forest's bubble burst now, they lost to Newcastle 3-1, lost to Arsenal 3-0, all that sort of... You knew the Chris Wood thing wasn't going to last forever, of course. Been having a great season, but he's not that type of player that's going to have a 38-game blitz. And Arsenal, really, they were always going to improve. And I think Forest potentially had Arsenal at the wrong time and Arsenal had Forest at the right time.
It seems to be that the Forest bubble has dropped a bit. I'm not going to lie. I've seen none of this game. I didn't see any of the highlights. What I did see was Arsenal dominating, and from what I heard, they deserved the win. They couldn't really lay a glove on Forest from what I heard. So for Arsenal, it was just about getting back to winning ways after the wee blip in form, and obviously they have the Champions League tomorrow against Sporting Lisbon, is it?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how they do there. And then West Ham at the weekend, you would expect them as we spoke about, you would expect them to win there because West Ham can't buy one at the minute. So it's looking good again for Arsenal, but hopefully for Forest's sake, they don't unravel now.
Well, that's it. And one of the shock results of the weekend was Wolves' 4-1 victory at Craven Cottage. Fulham have been absolutely flying. Of course, play Spurs next week, so they'll be looking for a Dr. Tottenham cure. The Spurs maybe have to take that tag off after beating Man City, but we'll see. But Wolves, I always says I thought they would get better. I'm a big fan of Gary O'Neill, and I'm really happy that they got this one because I don't think they're as bad as what they're made out to be. They are a good watch at times, and I have to say, Cunha seems to be getting better and better. And when you have a player like that, it gives you real hope you can stay in this league.
Yeah, well, at the start of the season, I predicted them to go down, and I'm still sticking to it. I'm not wavering. I still think they could go down.
I really do. I think with Cunha and João Gomez, if you keep them 2 foot, they'll be fine.
Yeah. But no, it was a well-needed one for them. And again, Fulham again are one of these teams where they're up and down. So they're saying,
well, look, for Europe, Fulham battered them until the equaliser, and then they just didn't recover.
Yeah.
It was one of them games.
I think I was just once Wolves got. I actually did out of the 3 o'clock kickoffs. I actually did watch this game because I thought it would be entertaining. So I watched this game, and some of the goals in it, the Wolves scored were brilliant. I thought Iwobi's goal was good. Cunha, as you say, he's just had a different level, and it'll be interesting to see if some. It reminds me of João Pedro a bit, where he's sort of too good for the team he's playing. I know Brighton are a good side, but I could see like Acuna or João Pedro move to a bigger club in the summer.
And of course, the drama continued in the 3 o'clock kickoffs. I mean, I have to say, it was a great weekend of football. There were some great games. Villa Park, it was a 2-2 draw between Villa and Crystal Palace, but of course, the game turned on a potentially big moment. Villa could have went 2-1 up from the penalty spot. A great save by Henderson, and 52 seconds later, it was in the back of the Villa net for Crystal Palace. They get 2-1 up. Villa did fight back. They salvaged a draw. But just on Villa at the moment, just can't seem to buy a 1-6. Now we out of 4 defeats in that 6. It looks like they're really struggling with this European format that Newcastle struggled with a couple of years ago.
And to be fair, the European format now is a lot harder to deal with because you're playing high caliber of opposition most of the time. And I said this at the start of the season, like I'll give myself credit here. I predicted Villa to finish 4th last year, and I predicted them to struggle this year. And a lot of teams were saying, or a lot of fans were saying because they have Emery, they'll be fine. But I think they're nowhere near top 4 for me this season. I think they'll finish anywhere between.
Do you think is he under pressure?
Nah, surely not. No.
Football fans have short memories, and the one thing I would say that there is form with Emery is when it starts wrong, it go really wrong. He's had that at multiple clubs where he's had success, but once there's a dip, it seems to completely unravel. I don't think Villa are there yet, but they go to Stamford Bridge at the weekend. If they lose that game, I'm not sure how long they will have to turn this around. I know we got them in the Champions League and exceeded expectations, but now that they're there, there's been a lot of money spent. They want to stay there. If they feel that it's going pear-shaped, he would be under pressure. I know he's on a big contract there, but I think Villa are not shy about splashing cash.
No, and he did say, I don't know if you've seen this, but I watched his interview after the game, and he said they're really struggling with transition at the minute. Like their teams are really finding it easy to play through them, which they need to sort out because
they were flying high, and then all of a sudden they were dipping, and they just completely unraveled.
Yeah. So I don't think they'll sack him, but as you say, football fans are very fickle, and we have very short memories. So another couple of, but I don't know I know they're playing Chelsea next, but I don't know who their next run of games is after that. But if they lose to Chelsea on Sunday, it could be a very tough Christmas period.
Yeah, I'm not sure who they have. I know they have Man City the weekend before Christmas at home. I'm not sure who else they have to play in there. I think they may. I'm not sure who else. They have to play Newcastle, I think, on Boxing Day as well, away.
Well, their next 3 are in the league are Chelsea, Brentford, and Southampton. So
chances to get points after that next one, maybe. They do have Juventus in the Champions League this week, so that'll be interesting to see how they get on against Juventus at Villa Park. Owen, Brighton and Bournemouth was seen as the game that maybe everyone wanted to watch, and it was pretty entertaining from what I hear. Brighton started fast, got a man sent off, but did hold on for a 2-1-1. I have to say, 2 real quality goals from them, but they were hanging on at the end. Semenyo had the bar. But I think you mentioned them, João Pedro, the pass from Matoma in the first time finish was real quality. And Brighton are one of those teams on their day they can give anybody problems. We've seen that this season.
You've seen it against Spurs in the second half and Liverpool in the first half. They could have been out of sight against us
as well. So they are capable.
Man United, Arsenal. So I know Stefan has a wee wager on them to get top 4. So you never know, they could be in that conversation. But I just think Bournemouth and Brighton are an exciting team to watch. And for me, watch this Spaceway. I know they lost, but watch this Spaceway Areola. I think he could be in the line for a big job in the future. I really like him as a manager.
Yeah.
But
and draw some Park going. Brentford had a man sent off, caused a lot of controversy. What was your opinion on it?
I think it's a harsh one.
One of those ones that's letter of the law, but common sense. It wasn't. He didn't mean to do it.
It wasn't going to hurt Pickford. Like.
Yeah.
So I think wouldn't be surprised if they appeal.
Yeah, Everton seem to have turned a wee bit of a corner, digging out the odd result here and there. And
You know,
I would imagine.
the fans aren't happy at all. Like from what I've been seeing,
I know,
they're
but
turning
I
on
do
dice.
think it's wise to stick with Sean Dyson and gamble, and then maybe look for a change in the summer when you move on to the new stadium. Because I do think when they move on to that new stadium, it's going to be very difficult to play the style of football they're playing. Bigger pitch, you know, the new ground design's not going to. It's like an old style ground, Goodison. I do think teams will lose that Everton away nightmare. You know what they're going to do. Pickford's going to launch it from the halfway line. I do think they will need to change their style of play in that new stadium. But I think for now this season, dice keeps you up, and you don't want to be playing championship football in the new stadium, gambling on another manager.
No. But there's not much to say about this game. As you say, board draw. It was from the highlights that I seen. It was just as you say, Pickford gets it, puts it long, hopes for a flick on. Even with 10 men, I heard that Brentford probably should have still won the game. So not much really to say about it. Really, these two teams are going to be bottom half teams at the end of the season. They're not going to really pull up any trees.
And finally, Owen, they finish off the weekend review. Of course, Amram made his debut yesterday away at Ipswich. Lightning and fast start, but we didn't see much more after that. And Ipswich had some big chances they won the game. Do you think, if he didn't know already, that was a big wake up call to how far United are away from the top teams in this league?
I seen a lot of United fans saying it was better that they drew yesterday instead of blitzed Ipswich 3 or 4, because you seen it with them players when Ollie came on. I think they won their first game about 3 or 4. Mourinho was the same. Ten Hag lost their first 2 games actually, but you seen it. The players sort of switching on for a couple of weeks.
Even under Van Nistelrooy, they had a wee bit of a bounce.
Yeah, so the players switch it on for a few weeks and then it goes back to normal. But I seen it has post-match interview yesterday before it was interrupted by Ed Sheeran, which I found very strange. I don't know why he gets on Sky Sports just because he's a famous Ipswich fan, but he said that he said himself that they're in for a long ride before it gets better. But I actually thought they played. They were awful. I thought until they scored inside 80 seconds, and then I thought Ipswich were the better team then throughout.
I can't think of too many more saves that the goalkeeper had, Mick, for Ipswich.
No, not Ipswich, and he's a very bad goalkeeper.
Anna was United's best player. I mean, he kept them on it. Owen, what I have to say is, looking at the team yesterday, Evans at the back, Casemiro and Eriksson in midfield. I mean, I think that is the thing that, regardless of how they do between now and the end of the season, you know, Amram's going to have a completely different squad. But it's going to cost a lot of money to get United going again, because all these players aren't going to be there anymore. They're older. They're not good enough. Some of them, you know, Xerxes, come on, you know, and you need to go and you're turning to Xerxes. And I just thought, you know, this is a really, really average group. I think Roy Keane summed it up perfectly, that they're mid-table, Europa Conference League contenders possibly. I don't see them finishing above Chelsea, Spurs, Newcastle. I know Villa's struggling, but even Villa, I think, are a better team. Brighton are a better team. You could argue Bournemouth are a better team. I just don't see where they fit in.
No, not this year anyway. And as you say, it's going to cost. I think in the summer they need to spend the guts of 200, 300 million, and you just can't do that these days. And Man United are one of these teams that are very close, I think, to the PSR thing. So they'll need to do a lot of selling before they can think about buying.
Yeah, and he's going to come on and take a lot of the players they don't want.
And a lot of these players, like as you said, Johnny Evans, like as much as a decent player he is, it's 2024. He's 36.
Yeah,
he's mid-30s. Casemiro, Casemiro just looks slow.
Back end of the career one. And let's move on quickly, because I know Monday Night Football starting at 6:30, so I want to get wrapped up before that. I think it's Theo Walcott on tonight with Jamie Carragher. And actually, Walcott, I think, has been a very good pundit when he's been on Match of the Day and Sky. So,
I like him.
Never liked him as a player, of course, but seems to be as a very good pundit. And before we move on to the midweek predictions, of course, Newcastle play Aston Villa tonight. Or sorry, Newcastle play West Ham tonight. How do you see that game going? Do you think would you worry for West Ham, or would you worry for Lopetegui tonight if Newcastle already won by 2 or 3 goals?
I would worry for them if they just won in general, because it reminds me of the Steve Cooper thing. They're not happy, but I think Newcastle will win comfortably. Yeah. I'm going to go. I'll go 3-0 Newcastle. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, I fancy Newcastle too strongly. I think they're hitting West Ham's hitting Newcastle at the wrong time, to be honest. And let's look at the Champions League games to start off for this midweek preview. Just quick fire predictions. Man City, Feyenoord tomorrow night.
2-0 Man City.
Sporting Lisbon against Arsenal. Of course, it's Sporting Lisbon without Ruben Amorim, so it'll be interesting to see how they get on.
I'll go 3-1 Arsenal. I think Gyökeres will get a goal.
He's in some form. That could be quite tight, I actually think. Wednesday night, Aston Villa against Juventus.
2-1 Juventus.
Celtic against Club Brugge.
2-0 Celtic, I think.
Liverpool against Real Madrid.
I
actually think this game will be a draw,
That's what I'm going to go 1-1.
Moving on to Thursday, Europa League. Manchester United against Bodo Glimt.
3-0 United.
Nice against Rangers.
2-1 Nice, because I think Rangers are shocking at the moment.
I'm just hoping they don't sack their manager before we play him. We play him in the next Europa League round. Spurs against Roma. Roma really struggling, and of course, I've just recently employed Claudio Ranieri on a short-term contract at the end of the season. He lost his first game in charge last night to Napoli, 1-0. I think it's a big name Spurs are playing, but it's not a Roma team in a good place.
No, I'll go 3-0 Spurs.
Conference League. Heidenheim against Chelsea.
Who?
I had no idea who this team are.
I don't know. Whoever they are, I'll go 7-0 or something.
They won their last game 8-0, didn't Chelsea?
Our Conference League is a joke of a competition, isn't it?
Who else have we got? Larne are away to, I can't even pronounce them, Olympia Ljubljana. Madness is this competition.
I don't know. I'll go 2-0 Larne. I'm telling you, I'm not even joking.
Rapid Vienna against Shamrock Rovers.
1 each.
You'll not be too fussed about watching these Conference League games on a Thursday if you were stuck for some, would you?
See if Liverpool were on it, I wouldn't even watch it. I'm not even.
I think you've been very clever. I think this has glamorized the Europa League because of this competition. It's made the Europa League, but it used to be the Europa League was this, and now the Europa League seen as a decent competition because these teams are playing in the conference. But
it's awful.
Owen, it's been great having you on. In case you're not on for the weekend show, I haven't even worked it out yet, but you probably will be on, to be honest. But in case you're not on or you're busy or something, how do you see the game going on Sunday? Liverpool, Man City.
I'm gonna go 3-1 to Liverpool.
3-1 Liverpool. Owen, great to have you on as always. Always a good guest during the midweek. And there's some big games in the Champions League to look forward to. And of course, we'll be back on the podcast before the end of the week discussing Liverpool's big trip with Man City. I wonder if Jamie, if he's brave enough to come on after what happened last week, we'll have to get in contact with him. Or he might want to save himself for Manchester Derby.
See if Al's on, get me on, man.
Well, if you're new around here, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more content. Thanks for the ones who watched tonight and shared some comments. Always good for a wee bit of input on the show. We'll be back very, very soon. Enjoy the rest of the week and look forward to a very, very good weekend. It's coming on the best time of year. Christmas is approaching. Staff party on Saturday for me, so it's getting to that stage now where Christmas it's really hot. The decorations went up yesterday, and everybody's starting to look forward to the big day.
Well, I hope for our Christmas day out that you're not enjoying it anyway in the end yet.
Of course, Spurs Liverpool before Christmas. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you very, very soon.
See you soon.